My friends mocked me. They said I was just a widow. My name is Olivia Price. When my husband died, they called me a liability. A broken woman. She won't last a year, they whispered. Those people weren't strangers. They were my closest friends. We had built businesses together, laughed together. I held their babies. But after my husband's funeral, everything changed. Before I continue, please like and subscribe to my channel. They forgot I had once been the backbone of our circle. They forgot whose brilliance built the foundation of their success. And they forgot that every widow remembers. This is not just my story. It's the story of a woman who was broken, betrayed, and abandoned, but rebuilt herself into something greater. This is how I turned their mockery into my legend. It was raining the day we buried Daniel. His coffin gleamed like polished obsidian under a cloud-choked sky. I stood there numb, surrounded by whispers and umbrellas and my so-called friends. Evelyn, Monica, and Sarah. They hugged me with their cold arms, fake compassion dripping from their lips. We'll always support you, Liv. But days later, when I needed them most, they stopped answering. Business meetings moved on without me. Emails went missing. My name was quietly erased from our joint ventures. Then, I overheard Monica laughing at a charity gala in Manhattan. She was nothing without Daniel. No vision, no skill. Just a widow. Something snapped inside me that night. The old me died with my husband. The new me? She was just being born. Twist introduced. They stole my husband's company. And I had proof. The betrayal wasn't subtle. They hosted a board meeting in Chicago when I was never invited to, and voted me out as CFO of our hospitality startup, Eden Oak Properties, a company I built with Daniel from a single rental home in Florida. Sarah sent me an email. It's best for everyone if you step back and grieve. That same day, I heard from a legal assistant, one quietly loyal to me, that Evelyn had already been introduced as co-founder and head visionary during an investor pitch. They erased me. But they forgot one thing. Before I married Daniel, I was the strategist. I studied law. I handled contracts. I built systems. And while they shined on social media, showcasing designer suits and rooftop opening parties, I began quietly collecting receipts, literally. Every manipulated board decision. Every misappropriated investor fund. Every fraud they committed while drunk on greed. I didn't cry. I studied. I spent 2 months behind the scenes. No one knew I quietly moved to Houston, where Daniel and I had our last portfolio investment, a modest apartment complex. While I renovated small units and rebuilt my network, I was tracking their crimes across state lines. Evelyn was using company money to launch a clothing brand. Monica was forging signatures. Sarah was writing questionable checks. I hired a private investigator. A quiet force named Marco Reed, a former federal agent. Are you ready to bring them down slowly or fast? He asked. Slowly, I answered. Let them relax. Let them believe they've won. That same night, I sat alone on my balcony. The air was muggy, but the breeze felt like change. Then my phone buzzed. A message from Evelyn. It was a photo of her and the others, drinking champagne in Miami. Don't take it too hard, Liv. We'll always remember you fondly. That was her mistake. She assumed I was gone. I sold the renovated Houston units and moved quietly to Los Angeles. With the profit, I created Solar Heart Investments, funded by the same capital they had stolen from me. I met with tech innovators, green builders, and organic luxury architects. Nobody knew my background. I introduced myself as Olivia Hart. By the time Evelyn flew to LA to speak at an awards ceremony about female entrepreneurship, I was already in the front row. She saw me, froze, and then smiled smugly. I applauded her loudly and walked out. That evening, I sent her anonymous documentation, a paper trail of her company's embezzlement to fund her fashion line. No rush, I wrote in a masked email account. Just letting you know what I have. The silence from her afterward was delicious. Within 2 weeks, Evelyn began acting panicked at board meetings. Sarah texted her, asking why she canceled their Miami investors' retreat. Monica tweeted something cryptic. When wolves look like friends, the fractures began forming. And I watched. Then, I made an offer to an old investor, a man they'd burned before. I quietly pitched Solar Heart as the true successor to Eden Oak's original vision. We signed a deal worth over $15 million in Beverly Hills that night. My empire was growing, and my enemies didn't even know I was the one tightening the rope. Sarah always prided herself on being the ethical one. But Monica? She was the wild card. I had her tax documents, all the way back to 2017. I slipped them anonymously to the IRS. A month later, Monica's accounts were frozen, and a federal letter arrived at her beachfront villa in Miami. She called Sarah in panic. Sarah blamed Evelyn. Evelyn claimed ignorance. The sisterhood was cracking. Meanwhile, Solar Heart purchased its first luxury sustainable townhouse in Brooklyn. I smiled, watching my name appear in the New York Times under Top New Impact Developers. It happened one humid evening in Chicago. I was sipping peppermint tea in my hotel room when an unexpected email landed in my inbox. It was from Jason, a former intern at Eden Oak. He'd seen my silent resurfacing through Solar Heart's rising press mentions, and clearly, he connected the dots. "I think you need to hear what I know," his email said. The next morning, we met at a discreet cafe near Millennium Park. Jason was nervous, but determined. Monica asked me to backdate permits for a Chicago renovation. It was illegal. They bribed inspectors. When I refused, they fired me and blacklisted my name in the industry. My heart sank, but my mission sharpened. Jason had receipts, email chains, falsified documents, even recorded voicemails. That night, I forwarded the entire package anonymously to Chicago's Department of Buildings. Monica's life began unraveling before dawn. At 6 a.m., her downtown penthouse was surrounded by investigators. By lunchtime, Eden Oak's social media page had gone dark. They had started eating themselves alive, and I hadn't said a word yet. I always loved storytelling, so I weaponized it. I hired a quiet filmmaker, an art school dropout named Sienna, who had once been rejected for a job by Evelyn's brother for lacking pedigree. We crafted a documentary titled Sisters of Greed, a fearless exposé on women in business who sacrifice friendship and ethics for wealth. It wasn't directly about Evelyn, Sarah, and Monica, but it might as well have been. We used actors, black silhouettes, altered voices, and blurred imagery. The story felt universal, but incredibly specific if you knew the scene well enough. The film quietly premiered at an indie theater festival in Austin. By dawn, Twitter was ablaze. "Sounds like this is about Eden Oak," one user posted. "Isn't their VP under investigation?" Thousands retweeted it. Within a week, Hulu, Netflix, and Prime Video were bidding for the rights. I didn't sell. Not yet. Instead, I let the rumors spread and watched as the three women pretended the film wasn't about them. But the seed had been planted. Their investors had seen it, and no one was laughing. Evelyn always wanted to be the face of glamour. She launched the Eve Mode collection, her fashion brand built entirely with misappropriated company funds. For months, it looked successful. Front row seats at New York Fashion Week, glossy photo shoots, celebrity endorsements. But success, without ethics, is sand in the wind. Using public records, I found her fabric supplier in Atlanta, Fern Cotton Works, who hadn't been paid in months. They had proof Evelyn had breached contract. I sent an anonymous tip and they filed suit. Their lawyers were efficient and vicious. Within days, fashion blogs announced the suit. By the third day, Vogue quietly unpublished Evelyn's profile. Her social media comments were flooded with "thief" and "pay your workers." Behind the scenes, her investors panicked. The brand was shuttered. Models canceled partnerships. Showrooms pulled products. Evelyn tried to hold a public live stream to clear her name. 5 minutes in, she started crying. The comments told her she deserved every tear. One thing I always admired about Sarah was her composure. She had built a glittering image of stability, righteousness, and integrity. So, I targeted her quietly and personally. I sent a summary of her financial movements, acquired from Marco's investigations, to her husband, David, through a private email. The title simply read, "For your family's safety, please read." Days later, news broke. David Price, prominent pediatric surgeon, filed for divorce, citing ethical incompatibility. Rumor spread that Sarah had used their joint trust to launder Eden Oak funds. She denied everything, but the damage was done. Their children were pulled from school. Paparazzi camped outside their gated home in Connecticut. One day, I watched an exclusive interview where Sarah begged for public forgiveness. She looked exhausted, frail, nothing like the ethical queen I once knew. Funny how truth can strip people bare. Evelyn, cornered, tried to sell her Eden Oak stake. But Eden Oak was now a sinking ship. She listed her shares quietly, whispering behind closed doors in D.C. clubs and Manhattan soirees. But no one wanted shares in a company facing federal scrutiny. She called Monica. I knew, because I traced the call activity. I can't hold on anymore. They'll find everything, she whispered. Monica snapped back. Then burn it all. I'm not going down alone. They didn't realize their calls were being recorded on an app I'd installed on Sarah's phone months ago. When Monica's angry email to an investor leaked, the rumor mill exploded. Their sisterhood had shattered. Investors were abandoning ship. Eden Oak's value plummeted. So I made my move. Through 3 shell companies, I bought 10% ownership. Sarah's lawyer contacted me unknowing. A silent partner wishes to purchase minority shares. Are you interested? I almost laughed. Of course, I replied. Silent is my specialty. By the end of the week, Solar Heart was Eden Oak's largest silent investor. And Evelyn had no idea who owned her past. The 3 women finally cracked. Sarah, forced into public scrutiny, sued Evelyn for breach of fiduciary duty. Monica backed her up, hoping to shift the blame. Evelyn's lawyer responded with a 28-page countersuit that included screenshots of Monica's forged permits, Sarah's tax evasion, and internal misuse. Their alliance shattered in the most public legal catfight of the decade. CNBC ran a segment titled, "The Fall of Eden Oak." When allies become enemies. I watched it on my iPad, sipping chamomile tea with a smile. They weren't just falling. They were drowning. Investigators raided Eden Oak's New York headquarters. Employees were seen carrying cardboard boxes out onto the street, shocked, unaware executive decisions had poisoned their futures. The news ticker read, "Federal probe into Eden Oak for corporate fraud scandal." Their fortune, reputation, credibility, gone in a flash. Solar Heart received 3 investor calls that afternoon. "We admired what Eden Oak was supposed to be. We think you may be the true successor." "Yes," I said. "That was always the dream. I didn't have to lift a finger. Panic did the work for me." Evelyn started getting anonymous calls and emails. Some were real. Some were mine. Some were fake, a bit of artistic mischief. Screenshots of her credit default notices circulated on group chats. She posted a cryptic Instagram story. "Not all mistakes can be undone." Then she went offline. Meanwhile, Solar Heart expanded into Miami with a new green high-rise project on Eden Oak's old property. I renamed it the Phoenix Lofts. The first property Daniel and I bought, Sunset Harbor Apartments, was sold to Eden Oak after his death. Now it was being liquidated. I quietly bought it back under Solar Heart and restored its original name, Price Harbor Suites. I was back where it all began. And I made one final decision. To offer free housing to senior widows in the community. To honor Daniel. And to bury Eden Oak's legacy with grace. The phone rang at 2 a.m. It was Sarah. Her voice was unsteady. "Olivia, I know you're behind all this. Please. We can fix it. I was wrong, but I never wanted it to be like this." I listened. Then I said nothing and ended the call. For years, I gave them grace. Now I gave them silence. Once upon a time, Evelyn was dressed by stylists and seated beside celebrities. Now, she was hawking jewelry on Instagram Live. Her face was damp with sweat. Her laugh had lost its edge. When one woman typed, "Didn't you steal from your own company?" Evelyn blocked her immediately. Her follower count dropped by half in 3 days. Then came messages tagged to my private account. "You destroyed her."
No.
"She built her empire on lies." I simply returned her tools. Monica had always been the hustler, the wild one, the risk-taker. But Marco found something deeper. A police record from 9 years ago. A hidden arrest for prescription fraud. Not public, because her family paid it off. I forwarded it to the Wall Street Journal.
They had a field day.
Monica West, the real face behind the real estate queen? Her speaking engagements were canceled. She resigned from every board. Her image was destroyed. She barely survived on brand deals until her name became unworthy of mention. Evelyn went door to door among old friends, looking for loans. One forwarded her email to me. "Olivia, should I lend her?" I smiled and replied simply, "Not with a conscience." By now, everyone realized the legend building beneath the surface. Solar Heart's name was synonymous with trust. Eden Oaks was synonymous with disgrace. Evelyn tried selling her childhood home in Toledo, Ohio, to cover debts. I bought it without blinking. I converted it into the new Solar Heart regional office. Press was invited to the ribbon cutting. They loved the poetic irony. Widow turns betrayal into legacy. Evelyn stood across the street, hood up, eyes hollow. She didn't come closer. She couldn't. One morning, public cameras caught Sarah being escorted out of her D.C. home. She was charged with tax fraud and conspiracy. The world watched as she defended herself publicly, blaming Evelyn and Monica. Latest news reported that the judge denied bail. I sent a letter to her lawyer. "Ask your client if she knows the meaning of restitution."
He did. She cried.
Sisters of Greed dropped on Hulu in prime time. Viewership, 23 million in 48 hours. Social media exploded. The threads began. Who are the real women in this? Is this based on Eden Oak? Evelyn went private. Monica deleted her Twitter. Sarah's legal team tried to file an injunction. The judge laughed it off. The people demanded a sequel. But I had another ending prepared. Eden Oak's empire was officially liquidated. Holdings sold. Name dissolved. The last asset was a luxury eco-lodge in the Catskills. Final bidding began. Press, investors, critics, it was packed. And then, sold to Solar Heart Investments for $5.1 million. I stood up. Cameras flashed. Evelyn was there, hair unwashed, suit borrowed, body shaking. I looked at her. She understood. Everything she dreamed of destroying, I rebuilt. In my name. I stood on the stage of the Hudson River Ballroom, the same one Evelyn once strutted across when she was celebrated as a rising star. But this time, the crowd had come for me. The spotlight settled. "Ladies and gentlemen," the host announced, "our final and most prestigious award tonight, Real Estate Innovator of the Year, goes to Olivia Price of Solar Heart Investments." Applause. Cheers like a roaring ocean. I rose slowly, wearing a simple black gown with a teal silk trim, Daniel's favorite colors. My heels clicked with purpose as I walked to the podium. "My name is Olivia Price," I began. "Once, I built everything with someone I loved. I lost him, and those I considered family turned their backs on me when I needed them most." A hush fell over the room. But I stand here today not to shame them, but to remind every person who's ever been counted out, every mother, widow, immigrant, survivor, and dreamer, that you are not defined by what breaks you. I paused and looked directly at Evelyn, disheveled, sitting in the back row. You are defined by what you build after. And if you build with integrity, even your worst betrayal becomes your greatest blueprint. The room erupted. Later that night, reporters mobbed me on the stairs of the venue. People asked if I had a comment on the collapse of Eden Oak. I smiled. No kingdom built on deceit can stand forever. As I entered my car, I took one last look across the glittering Manhattan skyline, the one I now helped shape. I wasn't wearing a crown. I didn't need one. I had become a legend. You can tear a person down. You can take everything they have. You can mock their grief, steal their dreams, and try to erase them. But remember this: what someone builds with pain becomes unstoppable. This isn't just a revenge story. It's a rebirth. Every widow, every broken soul, every person who's ever been told they are less than.
Rise.
Because your comeback will always be louder than their betrayal. Thank you for listening to my story. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share my videos.
Thank you.